Many are calling Billy Graham one of the greatest evangelists ever, a towering figure who cannot be replaced. President Trump described him in a statement as God's ambassador and said he was privileged to know him. Former President Barack Obama said he gave hope and guidance to generations of Americans. Other presidents also praised him, and Southern Baptist spokesman Russell Moore called him the most important evangelist since the Apostle Paul. Liberty University President Jerry Falwell said he illuminated the gospel like no one else.
The Christian faith has lost the best communicator of the gospel of the last century, in my opinion.
Outside of the Graham Library in Charlotte, North Carolina, visitors reacted in shock when they heard the news.
We just loved him, and it feels like the world's going to fall apart a little.
Those who spent time with Graham remembered his humility and kindness. Evangelist Greg Laurie said the private Billy Graham was the same as the public Billy Graham. Ministry leaders remembered his fierce conviction to integrity that allowed him to preach for decades without scandal. President Trump remembered his leadership in the wake of 9/11. Speaking at the National Cathedral, Graham told Americans God can be trusted even when life seems at its darkest. Regent University professor and native South African Corne Becker remembered that Graham was a champion of racial equality. He refused to preach in South Africa until 1973, when blacks and whites could hear the message together.
He would often say that the ground at the foot of the cross is level. Any person can come. And Billy certainly understood that racial harmony and the equality of all people were indeed part and parcel of the gospel. Indeed, it is the gospel.
A spokesman for Graham says he spent his last few months on earth in and out of consciousness, not taking phone calls or seeing guests. A nurse was the only one with him when he passed, which his doctor described as peaceful. Graham had suffered from cancer, pneumonia, and other health problems. Now the world is preparing to honor him with a series of tributes. A 3-hour procession is planned for Saturday to take his body from Asheville to Charlotte. It will lie in repose for 2 days next week. A private funeral will be held next Friday, March 2nd. Graham's son Franklin will deliver the eulogy, but for Graham, the accolades were never the goal. What only mattered was the Lord.
I want to hear one person say something nice about me, and that's the Lord. When I face him, I want him to say to me, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant."